You're live.
So this is Senate Transportation. We are back working on the T-bill, H 944, and Damien is back from across the hall. And we are going to start at sections 14 and 15, which if you have new language that combine those,
it's in draft 3.1. So for the record, I'm Damon Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. Draft 3.1, which is dated yesterday at 11:35 a.m. So I started working on this while we were in committee. Is new. It combines sections 14 and 15 from yesterday's draft. It's on page 22. So the big change here is subsection B was essentially was section 14 yesterday. This was originally a report that was coming in November. It's been updated. So now, in consultation with the treasurer, and at the time the agency submits the proposed FY28 program, it requires a report to accompany the program that identifies projects that are eligible to be funded with proceeds from the issuance of $10 million in transportation infrastructure bonds. And then specifically provides on page 23 that the report shall include an analysis comparing the present value of the estimated cost to pay for the identified projects using the TIB proceeds and the cost to pay for them on a pay-as-you-go basis, and a comparison of the project scheduled if funded with bonds to their schedule if funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. So it essentially takes what was in section 14, eliminates the November date, and makes it a report concurrent with the submission of next fiscal year's transportation program.
So just a couple of questions. So when you say next year, when would this
This is
report come
next
about?
January,
Okay,
when
so,
the transportation program for FY28 is submitted.
okay, so January of 27.
That's correct.
So less than a year from now.
That's correct.
Okay, just double. Just double. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. So, so you did. I'm sure you received it, but you received it after you had done this. We may need to add language. We do need to add language that talks about CDAC, and because CDAC hasn't worked on TIBs for a long time, so they need to be part of this process. And that information is from the state treasurer's office, but I'd like them to weigh in on the specific language, so we'll know that by the rest of sometime today.
So while I was testifying across the hall, the Treasurer's General Counsel, Justin St. James, emailed me proposed language. Their proposal is adding the language, the Treasurer in consultation with CDAC shall review annually any requested issuance of transportation infrastructure bonds pursuant to 32 VSA 1001A3 as part of its net state tax supported debt analysis provided to the Governor and General Assembly.
Okay.
And I would suggest that be added in section 13 as subsection C. Section 13 authorizes the issuance of bonds pending approval by the General Assembly. So if the committee decides it wants to add that language, that's where I would suggest to add that.
do I hear objection to that? Go ahead.
Well, I just have a question about why 10 million. Like, if we could be less specific, like, it seems like we could kind of a random number. The treasurer's staff that and their whole. I don't think there was I don't know if it's better to be 8 or 12. This would not allow that. I mean, it will allow 8, it's not more than. But if there was some benefit of doing 15, we know enough now to limit it to 10. This is okay.
I think we should actually increase it because when they had, not to the entire 50 million that they were talking about, but I think it should be increased because there's also economies of scale when you go out to bond. So let's get an updated, information from the treasurer. And it could be that the issuance would be of 50 or let's say 50, but then you use 10, over 5 years. Yeah. But
When we do that, if they're being, if they're working with the treasurer and CDAC and then the own agency's opinion, do we need a document? I mean, if we say not more than 10 or not more than 50, if we don't do that, will we worry that the treasurer, the CDAC and the transportation is gonna go like, hey, there's no limit, let's do 400 million.
yeah, well, they probably won't do that, but
I don't think so.
yeah.
Who would know the
Yeah.
answer to that?
Doesn't this language do that? And for 5 years?
So it authorizes $10 million a year for 5 years total, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So that's,
so it's $10 million in per year.
Yeah.
To provide funding.
So just from and I don't,
I'm sure Logan, you was here.
We did one.
if there, for example, was a big bridge project, we'll say something on the interstate or a big bridge project. That project would more than likely spread over a couple of years. And with this, I'd like them to be, because if they're gonna bond for something, it probably would be a big project like a bridge or something. And it would probably span over 2 years, so.
yeah, so CDAC looks at the state's financial ability to pay. But then the way it works in the capital bill is then the capital bill looks at the actual project, but the projects have to meet the criteria. It's basically,
Yep.
it's a length.
Yep.
But, so let's just hear from the treasurer again, or I can talk to them again about this
I
language.
think you're gonna have to, I'm gonna put you in charge of talking to them again.
Yeah.
And if between you and Damien can talk to them and get the numbers right. Because we're running out of.
Right. And whether or not a number should be in there.
Right, because my idea is just to say authorized to request issuance of transportation infrastructure bonds in 13 and then in 14 in the same language. It's still just gonna be a proposal. They won't be able
Yep.
to issue the bond. So we'd still get a chance to come back and say, why did you do this number? We think 10 million is a better number than just saying, putting it in here at 10 million.
Yeah,
But
I think that's.
If you could take it upon to weigh in with them, with Damien, and get us what's an appropriate number. I think the important thing is we get them to weigh in and come back to us and tell us how we would do bonding and do it in a smart way.
Yes, and so it could be that we don't specify a number here.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to,
So,
and then there's another thing I just want to check on this, on page 22, when we talk about a report. Is that a meaningful report that we could implement? Okay, I don't want it to be just advisory or.
So the report here is, and whether it's meaningful or not, I think is,
Or is it actionable immediately, so that it's not the next year?
Yeah,
That's
so-
my concern.
what you would have in front of you. It's supposed to identify projects in the proposed FY 28 transportation program that could be funded with bond proceeds.
Okay,
So you can then decide whether, similar to what you do on the capital bill, whether you're authorizing issuance of bonds to fund those projects, or whether you're going to require them to be funded on a pay-go basis.
okay, so they would be in the white book or in some.
So what this calls for is basically parallel proposals. Show us a proposed program with bond funding and without. And then we will choose to
and then
implement.
So
we
one or
get
the
a
other.
chance to choose.
Right.
Okay,
So I would defer though to, for example, the agency and the treasurer to tell you
yeah,
how meaningful this information and helpful it would be. That's a policy sort of input piece, but this gives you language here that is designed to allow you to implement if you wish to move forward with bonding based on the information you get.
Great. So my concern was that we would get the information in 2028 and then be able to use it in 2029. But I want to be able to use it in
It is
2020.
specifically for FY 28.
Okay.
Section 14.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Section 13 is a longer authorization. Section 14 is specifically
Okay,
FY 28.
great.
I think the plan is if we don't know at this point what federal reauthorization is gonna be. We don't know what the economy is gonna look like. And given all of those variables, come back, my hope would be, but they come back and is, here's what it would look like if we were bonding, here's what it would look like if we go, they go. And, if by some stretch, the general fund is flush with money and they want to keep sending money over, fine and dandy. But if they're not, this gives us a place to go to make match if a transportation bill in Washington got. So,
Yeah, I think it's very responsible.
so we're gonna count on you two to connect
Yes.
and get us back information as quickly as we can. All right. I think the findings we agreed to. Section 16.
So that was section 16 yesterday. Today it's section 15 in the new draft.
Yep.
So the mileage-based user fee findings. Getting to the mileage-based user fee itself. On section 16, in section 4301, there are a couple questions that came up as I was going through this. So the purpose is stated as imposing a mileage-based user fee for battery electric vehicle pleasure cars. Given that this committee's proposal now is extending out to additional types of cars in out years, the question is whether you want to change BEV pleasure cars to covered vehicles, or whether you want to amend the section in future years, or whether you just want to get rid of the purpose section altogether. It is not a necessary section. You have findings in the language already before it. So it is in some ways duplicative. So there's just a question of whether this makes sense to keep or change, or remove altogether. And if you want more time to think about that, I can keep moving.
What's the pleasure?
So there is an intent section already in 15 that speaks to expanding this to first implementing it for battery electric vehicles, and then expanding it to other vehicles in out years, and then ensuring that the way it's implemented does not discourage ownership and use of electric and fuel efficient vehicles. So that's already in the session law. So when the purpose section was first drafted, and we just haven't returned to it since then, that findings and intent section didn't exist.
Well, but doesn't 16 also have definitions?
It does. So it would just be renumbering within 16, getting rid of this permanent statutory purpose section.
Keeping the definitions.
Keeping the definitions, keeping the rest as amended today.
Would you need a definition of covered vehicle? Is that?
It's already defined in section
Other
4302 within section 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
The question is whether you just need that first paragraph.
Yeah, do you need this? Yeah, so in section 16, it creates the new chapter. the first section of that chapter is a purpose section that, as I was reviewing it, I realized hasn't been updated since we first put this language together in the House. It doesn't reflect the current Senate construct that you're working on.
And it's the only difference in this is in statute, and the other is session law.
Exactly. So session law is harder to find down the road, but
It's the same weight.
it has the same weight. Yeah. And the session law piece that you have more accurately reflects what you're actually doing.
It's the pleasure of the committee.
If this is not accurate, I'd like to delete it.
I'm okay with that.
So
Okay.
that's out. The first paragraph's out, and then we're in the definitions.
Okay, so. Yeah, so what you'll see in the next draft is that the remaining sections within the new chapter that section 16 enacts will just get renumbered to address that. So the next change in here is on page 28, line 5. This was just a technical correction caught by the agency. The termination of a covered vehicle's registration in Vermont. So it basically anticipates the instance where a vehicle's registration in Vermont is terminated. And for whatever reason, it is not concurrent with the registration of the vehicle in another state. And so that's just, but it's trying to anticipate that there could be instances where that vehicle, after a period of being off the road, is registered in another state, et cetera. Or perhaps where there's a paperwork issue and it's been registered in 2 states and they're terminating the registration in Vermont. But whatever it is there, but that's just meant to clarify that we're looking only at the Vermont registration.
I think we're okay with that.
Yep. Next change is, after we last looked at the mileage-based user fee, AOT sent over some proposed changes. And so I've highlighted them in here, as I mentioned, when I sent out draft at the beginning of the week as AOT proposals, or AOT alternative. And so bottom of page 31, top of page 32, for the flat rate option, this would provide currently it says that you would pay the mileage base reporting the flat rate within 45 days after the commencement. And my understanding of the OT's comments was, what about at the time of registration? Is that correct, Patrick? Yeah, okay. Good. I haven't had a chance to connect with Patrick since I updated this, so I'll be checking in with him. But yeah, so that would just be, instead of doing this tied to the mileage reporting period, if you're planning to do flat rate, when you renew your registration, you'll get the bill and you can pay it then or within 45 days. I'm seeing Patrick raise his hand, Mr. Chair.
It's hard for me to see. He likes sneaking up. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, it would be at the time of registration, not within 45 days after registration.
For the record, Patrick Murphy, APP of Transportation. I just want to clarify, an invoice would be issued after the mileage reporting period closed, but it wouldn't be due until the point of registration. So, yeah, it's just to avoid somebody, having a 6, 7, 8 month lag between their inspection process and registration, and then having paperwork back and forth, and somebody being deemed not current before they even get to the point of registration. And this is just saying everything becomes due at the point of registration, but it doesn't preclude somebody from paying before then to settle, so that you're free to move forward with the process.
What would you need? You just, after you would just talk about strike not more than 45 days and just say at the time of registration? It's like,
I think it would be at the, of each mileage reporting period at the, time of the subsequent registration renewal.
yeah, it's still at the 45 days, that wording in it?
No, so the 45 days, yeah, so I think what he's saying is that an owner who elects the flat rate option shall be issued an invoice for the amount due at the conclusion of the mileage reporting period. The amount due shall pay the amount due on or before the date of registration renewal, or the time where the registration is renewed. And I would obviously wordsmith that, so it's a little less jumbled.
Right. So I think you could just say shall pay the fee set in the subdivision at the time of registration.
Yeah. Yeah, on or before, so it allows you to pay in advance. If I could ask a clarifying question, because one of the things I noticed between our draft and the UVM presentation the other day is the UVM presentation had that set out as the option for all of the different payment options is you get your invoice at the end of the mileage reporting period, and unless you're doing the pay as you go or estimated payments in advance, for the annual option and the flat rate option, you have to come pay up by the time you renew registration. Is that the department's intent, Patrick? And
Could you restate that?
so is the intent of the department that for the annual fee and the flat fee, you get an invoice at the conclusion of the reporting period? And then for both of those, as long as you pay on or before registration, you'd be fine. So there's no 45-day period anymore.
That's correct.
Okay, so that I think is the proposed alternative from what's in here, which I didn't fully capture in this draft. But that would change 2B on line 20 or page 29, lines 7 through 10. And then the flat fee language we were just talking about would say the owner or lessee of a covered vehicle shall remit the amount due to the commissioner on or before the date of the vehicle's next registration or registration renewal. And then the only question then is, how is this addressing 2-year registrations? Is it your potential of a mileage reporting period ending more than a year before registration renewal?
Sure. So it just means that this becomes like absolutely to the point of registration. But people can, so in the transition, somebody, until they have that first mileage reporting period, they'd just be continue to pay that $89 fee.
Right.
Then at the end, when they have the registration renewal, they would pay, their mileage-based user fee up to a capped amount, or they elect just to pay that capped amount of $178.
Yeah.
So that when they come to that that first registration renewal, or the second registration renewal, they're not paying any more than another $89 because they've already paid $89 as an advance towards that road users charge. So for a 2-year registration, it's not going to work any differently. You're end up paying more in advance because you're not paying the $89, you're paying $178, and it's applied to your first and potentially second mileage reporting periods until you get to the true up at that, 2 years from there.
In the out years though, so when you get to say 2030, so you have your inspection in March, and then in October you renew your registration, and you true up from that March inspection by October, right? But then in October you renew your registration for 2 years. So does that mean as long as you pay by October 2032, for the intervening mileage reporting periods,
Yep.
you're good to go.
And at that
There's no-
point, you have the option to either just say, we're gonna wait until the end of that registration period to settle up. Or, because I expect that, 2 mileage reporting periods to be a pretty big deal, I'm going to space that out and I can elect to pay on a monthly or quarterly basis.
Okay. So that'll require some amendments if the committee wants to go in that direction. So right now, the draft says within 45 days at the end of the mileage reporting period. The proposal I'm hearing is that, and the agency's alternative here would be to, instead of saying within 45 days, to say the amount due shall be paid on or before the next renewal of registration, which would allow folks to stage out their payments or to elect at that, point to go into estimated payments if that's easier for them, and then true out at registration for any amount they owe.
And the registration could be within a week or it could be 50 weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
it could be 100 weeks. 2 years.
2 year
It
registration.
could be
Yeah.
2 years.
So,
And then there's a training amount.
yeah,
So just so I'm clear on that, you're sitting on. You're waiting on your true up for 2 years in some instances.
If somebody elects for a 2-year registration.
Yeah,
Yep, it's me. I'll be paying it.
But if you pay it before the info starts,
Right.
then you won't have to pay the info for 2 years.
Yeah, that's definitely, well, we're already registered for 2 years, so I can't now register again. I'm sorry I missed where
Maybe
we
you
were.
can-
I think I came in at the worst possible
Can
moment.
you register early? Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure that it works the same as licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially the agency's alternative language proposal is consistent with what UVM presented in their chart last week. So that it basically, instead of saying there's a fixed period of time, if you have the flat fee or the annual mileage reporting fee, or a fixed 45-day period to pay your mileage-based user fee, you just have to make sure that you paid in full by the time you renew your registration.
So that's which scenario?
I'd have to pull out my
Because this is,
copy here. But the scenarios there, if I recall, showed that,
yeah,
so if you look, the 2-year registration high mileage driver on the second to last page shows exactly what I'm talking about.
the 2-year high mileage first inspection before registration.
Yeah, so you get, there's the cap of 178. Driver may settle balance anytime before next registration. And they show the cap going away. If you don't worry about whether there's a cap or not, what they're essentially showing is that you have this time where you get assessed the mileage fee. So you get a credit in the account when you first transition in, then you're assessed your mileage fee. And then the credit is applied to the mileage fee. And then you have another inspection. And you have basically any time before your next registration to settle up the amount due. So you could pay right away. You could pay it out over time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
But if you were,
or all at once at your.
or all at once at your next registration, you could pay let's say you've got $278 years, so $356 plus your 2-year registration for $163. You could decide, I'm just gonna pay that $519 all at once, or you can pay it out over time. and stretch that out over several years and make regular payments or pay as you can. But their construct is basically, instead of making sure that you're paying within 45 days and then starting to charge you interest when you don't make the payments within 45 days, I think it's essentially saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, that whatever you do, you need to settle up by the time it's registration renewal, because that's basically the stick to get folks to pay, is that you can't renew your registration if you haven't paid, but you can pay on it whatever schedule works for you within that period.
Well,
Yep.
I'll just say, I think I've come somewhat around, if I'm understanding the current draft, that this is kind of the voluntary program that I've been asking for, because you can pay the fixed fee and not do any of this. So I'm at a place where I feel comfortable with that. To me, is the type of voluntary program that I'm comfortable with. But I still have some concern that we heard throughout the inspection conversation that people were avoiding getting inspections because it was like $75. So to just get an inspection. So now you're
Because the
tying,
inspection was $75.
yeah, exactly. Or 60, however much you're paying for the inspection, they said that's too much money for me now already. So I'm avoiding an inspection. So now we're tying a big chunk of money, more than that, to your inspection. So I think we're going to be setting up people who are low mileage drivers who can't afford inspections already. We're just compounding it. So if I'm understanding correctly, they now won't have to have interest, which was originally in the proposal, after 45 days, and they can pay the full boat at the end.
This is if you elect to go with the agency's alternative
Okay, which
proposal.
seems like a softer approach. I was very uncomfortable with the interest accrual piece. So I guess I'm more in favor of this.
I think this is the,
Yeah.
and people pay a registration, which they're used to doing, instead of trying to figure out 45 days on the end of the mileage.
I would like us to still consider an exemption for mileage smart participants in all of this, because I think those are the folks who are already avoiding high costs with inspections. So I would hate to see more people get less inspections because they're worried about a bill, but I'm comfortable with this. So that's what the question is.
If you can draft the proposal from,
I will.
DMV and or from the agency and UVM, and we'll come back and take a look at it again.
Yep, I will. Yeah, and so just to be clear, the estimated payment option is when you register or renew your registration, then you opt into the estimated payments.
Basically, the crux of this is that registration.
But
Yeah,
if you didn't get an inspection and you needed to re-register, you would have to get an inspection to be registered
or pay the flat fee.
or pay the flat fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, and then the language that we'll actually get to later in here. So if we keep working through the draft, there is
Let's keep going.
for newly registered vehicles, on page 32, lines 15 and 16. I realized in going through the draft that I've left out the flat rate option for newly registered vehicles, so that's just a correction. Then moving down to 43, I'm sorry, no,
30.
yep, so page 36, section 4306. The agency's proposal here is that if you have failed to get your inspection by the time of registration renewal, so they can't determine your mileage and they assess the flat rate, you would then have 60 days after being assessed the default amount to get an inspection, and you could then get assessed a lower amount. You wouldn't get a refund, but you get a credit towards your next fee due. So you could decrease your future fee by getting that inspection at that point.
Is there any way for us to include in this, like, something to do with income? I mean, there's got to be a way to say, help, I can't register because I can't afford this, and even the flat fee is more than, because I'm a low mileage driver. Like, is there a way to have some kind of equity built into this, so someone could say, I can't pay this, I need to register, I can't afford an inspection. I know that I can't afford 178, like, is there some kind of off lever for this? In any way we could put in? Maybe it could even be, why aren't you able to pay? Just asking people that question,
Who would monitor something like that?
the GMP.
That's quite a program. I'm guessing.
But if we're gonna do this for gas cars,
You would have to do for them too.
exactly.
Now you've got a monstrous, program and I see more positions and I see confusion. I don't personally support that.
So then people don't have access to their vehicle.
They find a way now. Talking gas, I don't know, I can't speak for gas, powered combustion engines. People who own a gas, powered vehicle find a way now to register that. I mean, some people are skipping it, but they're breaking the law. I don't want to change that.
I would say if we are going to talk about that, we should talk about it holistically, not just with this program. And that would be a big conversation.
But this is going to be the program.
Right,
for
exactly,
everybody.
exactly.
So I kind of want to start
But-
off with equity.
But the way it is right now, I don't think people usually don't get inspected because of the inspection fee. What they usually don't get inspected is they get in there and they tell them to be able to inspect your car, it's gonna cost you $1,000.
Yeah.
They go,
But we've addressed that,
yep,
and let's see if it works first. By tweaking the manual.
Yeah, but we didn't do anything about the fees.
You
And
can't control the fees. I mean, you
Well-
can't tell a inspection station what they're gonna charge.
a maximum, there might be a
Well-
maximum. I mean, it varies hugely over the state. Like I
It
did,
does, but, so don't gas prices. I mean, they're all over the place too.
well, gas prices, I mean, you know in advance too, with the gas prices. We talked about that. But I think the opposition to the inspections, I didn't have that much in my area and they're a lot less expensive. So
Yeah,
I would like it if we could somehow have a max amount. But we're not talking about that now. I mean, that's a
I
big
think that would
conversation.
be a hard thing to do is tell an inspection station, you're gonna have a maximum of
Yes.
Well, it could be a basic inspection and then, but I mean, that's a big conversation.
or you could require them to make it more clear, like on their inspection style. So they have the fee there, so they just see it as you pull out.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
I don't know,
That's already required. I'm not positive on that, but
yeah, but that would be a discussion about, I mean, I'm sympathetic to Senator White's point about how it can help the people make sure they don't lose access to their car, but we should.
Well, we do know that we're gonna be, that this is the first draft, basically, right? And so we're gonna implement it, we're gonna talk to the folks directly who are doing this. And we're gonna listen to suggestions. And so this construct is just the beginning. What I'm hearing from people is they don't like that we have so many options listed. They want fewer options, which I'm surprised because I thought that would be something that people would appreciate. But that's what I'm hearing most and from my constituents is that they don't want this many options. So,
Confusion, yeah.
yeah.
I guess my only other question is, if you fail your inspection, can you still have that odometer reading count towards registering the vehicle. You fail an inspection, you can't register either way, correct? But could they use that as the odometer reading for that period? So if someone wanted to pay their,
You'd have your odometer reading, yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm asking.
yeah.
Because, but if you fail your inspection, you can't register that vehicle.
No, I think it's the other way.
Okay.
If you don't have a registered vehicle, you can't get it inspected.
But you can
But
inspect.
the registration doesn't check whether you passed your inspection or not.
Okay.
If you're driving without an inspection, you are risking.
Yeah.
Again, you're breaking the law at that point, but
But you could fail your inspection in this construct and still have the odometer reading count towards your registration.
as I understand it, the AVIF system puts in the odometer reading no matter what.
Okay,
So even if it says, brakes fail, body rust, whatever it is, you're failing reason.
Hopefully body rust isn't gonna be a reason to fail.
Well, depends on whether it's structural or not, right? So, but yeah, so you have a identified safety issue with the vehicle, then you could still fail, but you'd have the odometer reading in there that it would close out your mileage reporting period and so forth. But yeah, it's this particular section doesn't get to the questions of the bigger sort of inspection questions about is it catching things that aren't safety issues? What about the emissions issues, et cetera? So I guess the question for the committee is, do you have a sense of, so the proposal that is included from the bottom of page 36 to the top of page 37 is that in an instance when someone is assessed the default amount because they did not get an inspection or did not provide an odometer disclosure,
They have 60 days.
they have 60 days. And it's, yeah, so this is predicated on the individual renewing their registration in the state. You'd have an odometer disclosure if you discontinued it. So it's really just if you didn't get your inspection, you'd have 60 days and you could reduce your bill at that point.
I like that part. I think 60 days is a little short. And there's definitely gonna be someone who gets, 3 months. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't get my inspection. I've certainly had the gold tag go, wait a minute, that was wrong. So I think the likelihood of 60 days, I think there should be no limit. If you get your inspection and it says you drive less miles, you should get a credit. Like, I don't know why it's 60 days. I mean, you did not use the road that much. But if people feel it has to be 60 days for some reason, I get those. Fine.
You want to put it out another month?
You gotta have a certain, 60 or 90 doesn't mean a whole lot to me, but you've gotta have a date to have an incentive of some sort. So I don't think it's much, but it should be 60 and 90.
At 3 months, I do think it has. I think any additional time we can offer someone to come up with the money.
So what I'm saying is, I'm agreeing,
Oh, okay.
actually.
Oh.
Yeah, shocker.
No.
90 days.
Yay, okay. Thank you.
Okay. And we'll take that.
Okay,
Change.
next change. Let's see, so the next change here is in page 41. AOT is proposing that the EV infrastructure fee amount in the previous draft. So if you get to your first mileage reporting period and you haven't renewed your registration yet, so this is your folks who are renewing registration in 2026, first registration, this would essentially say that you get either $89 or $178 applied towards the amount of your first user fee based on what you paid in EV infrastructure fee. So you'll get this proposal is to give you the full amount of EV infrastructure fee. The prior draft was just 89
Yeah.
flat.
I again appreciate that. It's just the softer this is, the more likely it will be successful. That's how I feel.
We okay with this?
Mhm.
Okay.
The next change is just a technical correction on line 8 of page 42. There's a report in that section, and so our drafting standard is to call it out in the title. The next change is line 5 of page 45. My editors noted that I've been calling it the MBUF program, but in a couple of instances, I just called it the MBUF. So
Unique color program.
calling it program, and on line 10 of page 45, the editors felt that number of miles instead of amount of miles was better stylistically. So
Yeah.
when they tell me my style is not good, I listen.
47.
46, bottom of the page, 2 more technical changes, costs and operating expenses.
The editors were
Yeah,
good to you.
yeah, operating costs and operating expenses of and revenue generated by mileage-based user fee.
I think
It's
we can
clunky,
go
but
with that.
apparently that's grammatically correct. Page 47, line 12, MBUF program.
Oh, you missed line 1.
Oh, line 1. Oh, so a hyphen to an M dash.
Oh my God.
I just bought that. It's not.
That our editors have very
Yeah.
sharp eyesight.
There was a dash, but it wasn't.
So it was a hyphen,
The
it should
sign
be an M dash.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, so N dash is the size of an N, M dash is the size of an M, and hyphen is smaller than both.
Yeah.
This needed it.
And for those of you who are interested, there's a really good 99% invisible on the usage and origination of the M dash.
The Chicago.
This is an M dash.
This is an M dash. Yeah,
I'm gonna-
apparently it's under the Chicago manual.
Yeah.
That's the proper usage.
And then on 12, you were program, which you did a good way.
Yeah, and then
And you're recommending something.
yes, I didn't have a verb in there. And so for consistency, there's a verb being added.
Improper.
This is great. You guys get to see all of my little typos. So on page 48, this is the next substantive change. The report here was on or before January 1, 2028. The agency would submit a draft of the plan. Agency has requested that that be bumped out to July or August because they are not expecting to have the draft copy of the plan ready. And this is the plan that's required under the federal grant.
What's the plan of what?
This is the federal grant requires a plan for the implementation, a final plan for the implementation of the MBA.
For the $3 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
So we're doing a plan in July or August 28th for a program that starts January 1st, July 26th.
So I'll let Patrick explain what the federal grant requires. But this is a draft plan and then the final plan would come 2 months later in September.
Before they submit the final plan.
Before they submit, they would
Yeah.
show it to you.
I'm just questioning why we do a plan in 28th for a program that starts in 27.
I'll defer to Patrick on this.
So, to put some context into this, Federal Highway Administration is managing this grant program to be able to understand and learn lessons from all of these different pilots and projects.
Right.
And so what we have as a deliverable is a final report that looks at what we've done, what are the lessons that we've learned in the first, basically 18 months of the program, and then begins to think about what we would need to have a transition strategy so that this could eventually apply to all vehicles and what are the different pieces that would need to be researched further, what we need to do to be able to, things that are already in some of the language that this committee has proposed. What are the other things that we need to do to understand how to distinguish between in-state and out-of-state files? But the general thrust of this entire grant is for the federal government to learn from these projects so that they can in turn begin to think about how to make the federal highway trust fund whole. And so this is the real driver of the whole program is, and why they would require a final report to talk about not only the implementation, how it was received, there's more detail in what I submitted to the committee this morning around what the communications plan will be, what the feedback has been from the public, and then what needs to happen to make this a workable solution, not just for Vermont, but for other states in the entire country.
I would say if they're going to present a plan to the feds and they present it in the legislature, no committee in the legislature has got the plan, and somebody calls one of us from the press and says, this is what's in the plan, we ought to get the plan before they present it to the feds.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then this other report that's after it would be, they would, be in concert. I mean, those two plans are gonna, not, be in conflict.
What other plan are you?
Where later on that page, it's, final plan and proposal for legislative action.
That is just the final draft of that same.
Yeah.
Okay, so good.
So
Yeah.
can I just bring this up? The emergency board and joint fiscal always meet in July,
Mhm.
and we're required to set revenue estimates by the end of July with the emergency board. What?
In September.
Well, we get the report from CAR that in July.
It seems like the last week of July.
It's the last of July. It's in,
Could be like the last couple of days of July.
yeah, it could be the last couple of days in July.
Yeah, it was flooding.
Almost, the bulk of JTOC committee will be here by when they present this to JTOC, by the end of July.
Is this July, August?
What we suggested today, I mean, is just July 15th. That gives us a reasonable amount of time to still have that. So people aren't actually really going to begin paying the mileage-based user fee until 2028. Because they'll have this transition period.
Yeah.
So that will give us at least 6 months of data. We'll have a couple of weeks to kind of finalize that draft report.
I'm
and be able to-
suggesting
Yeah.
that if the JTOC committee is pretty much all here in July, why wouldn't they do a presentation to the JTOC committee and notify the transportation?
Sure. I'm not there that.
So that would be July 1st, and then specify that the report goes to, or the draft copy goes to
I
JTOC
would
and
track
transportation.
the language for joint fiscal when everybody's here. If I
You taking
hand it-
JTOC or joint fiscal?
I would say that JTOC committee, most of the members, everyone but one is going to be here for the emergency board and then the joint fiscal.
Yeah.
So if we're going to be here for a day by the end of July, that they could do the presentation.
Yes, I think July 15th works, so done from July 1st.
Okay,
The joint fiscal won't meet till September, because it will be at the very end of July that we do that we get the.
You have to set the revenue estimates by the 30th.
I could be wrong.
Anything.
I'm new to it, so, but I just thought it was.
I'll update that to track the language for the e-board meeting.
Yep.
And the annual fiscal estimates. And it would be a draft copy of the plan. To be provided to JTOC and the transportation committees. And then on or before July 15th. So they can, that way you'll have it when you meet. And if you want to request that they appear to report on it, you can do that.
If it was me, I don't think it's clear on page 48, line 2, what the plan is.
It's the plan required pursuant to the terms of the agency's federal strategic innovation and for revenue collection grant.
Okay, and so I guess if there's one plan, then that's.
Is there another plan required pursuant to that? Okay, and I can, if there, is there more clear language that I could use, Patrick, to specify that?
I mean, I guess you guys are the ones that have to do it, so if you guys feel like that's pretty clear what the plan is, that's
Yeah,
required.
but-
And you called it a report.
It's, yeah, this is like in the grant agreement, it's called the final report.
Okay. Draft copy of the final report. Okay. And it's required to be submitted to,
Federal Highway Administration by September 30th, 2028.
Go ahead.
I just have a question, maybe we moved a little bit past it, but on line 16 and 17 related to recommend whether, on page 27. On whether to recommend whether to retain a flat fee or recommend the appropriate amount of the flat fee. Yeah, I guess why add those? And who are they recommending it to? Is it to
To-
the
to-
feds or is it?
no,
to
this
us?
is to, so that is a report to the House and Senate Committees on Transportation, House Ways and Means, and Senate Finance.
Okay,
So it's an initial plan and recommendation to incorporate plug-in hybrids, and fuel efficient. Two additional options for determining the amount of the MBUF, including the option to utilize vehicle systems or an aftermarket device to track vehicle miles traveled. Recommendation on whether to retain a flat fee option. So I know that I believe came out of the discussion we were having when the committee implemented the flat fee. Initially, the recommendation was whether to implement a flat fee option. And then when you decided to provide for it, that changed to whether to retain. Because the discussion with AOT had been that AOT did not want a flat fee. You don't have to keep that language. That's up to you. And then the last is to provide at least one option to track miles out of state.
yeah, okay, thank you.
So now I have a question about that, actually. So the one option in D could be one of the options in B. So let's just make sure that would work.
I will, make a note,
We have both.
go that up with me.
Okay.
This was
Thank you.
revenues in July and
Thanks for
January.
noticing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And I'm not sure that there's gonna be two additions.
Another meeting later in September.
And if we're all gonna be here, if you took it out of that.
Well, if you're
Well, they-
including one to track vehicle miles traveled
We're on record.
and then at least one option
Everything go to the committee.
to
Yeah.
enable.
I believe it here.
I think, with respect to the options, I think we've heard from other states that there are multiple options for tracking
Oh, yeah.
VMT and for at least one option for geofencing and tracking out of state miles.
Oh, yeah. No,
I think they could come up with multiple options. They may be variations on the theme.
yes.
Okay. So I have some report updates, it sounds like. I'll clarify that it's not the plan, it is a final report. And it's the report required to be submitted to the FHWA as part of the CERT grant.
And that's referenced twice.
Yeah, so that'll be referenced twice.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that somewhere we talked about, privacy, data privacy. I think it might be.
That is not in these reports. I can add that as a new D there to identify best practices for protecting data privacy for drivers.
It really just, yeah,
I can include that
or somewhere else.
within B. I can, because that's combining with D, it's already getting long. I'm probably going to break it out into bullets.
Okay,
So just I'll add on data privacy.
yes. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to go on to page 49?
Yep.
Okay. The sun is coming out. So actually on page 50,
You skipped what do you
skipping page 49, there's no substantive changes on page 49. Page 50, I have this marked as section 21A. It would be a different section number in the final version.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Yep. There was, AOT's proposal was to increase the flat rate in 2029. And then you'll see in section 22A, to then get rid of the flat fee in 2031. There is already a report in the report whether to retain the flat fee. So this is reflecting AOT's proposal. There wasn't a specific dollar amount, but it's for committee discussion about whether you would want to change the flat fees in the out years in the initial draft of the MBUF, or whether you want to return to that issue later.
I'd rather we just return. We get the information that we have, we find out what how's it going, and then we can, or whoever's sitting here at that time can decide to change it, lower it, get rid of it, whatever they want. That was
This is 21A.
21A and then 22A will be the repeal of the flat fee in 2031, which is, again, it's the AOT proposal for your consideration.
I really don't have a strong opinion because I can't believe we're not gonna, if we get into this, we're gonna have to grapple with it.
There'll be some changes that we're gonna make once my has. So this will be part of those consider changes to consider in the future.
So if I understand correctly, AOT is saying they want this language in here. We don't have it currently for section 21A. It's not like required that we set it that far out. So I agree with that. So the way to accomplish that would just be to get rid of 21A. And then for the 23 piece, or sorry, 22A, it would be the same if we would just get rid of that as well, but we leave section 22.
Hold on a second. Yeah, so
Because I agree, I think it
just catching up
Well-
with my notes on what you all are discussing. So yeah, 22 is already, that's the expansion to all light duty vehicle.
it's important.
And then 22A is just coincides with that expansion.
Okay.
The proposal is to get rid of the flat fee at that point and eliminate the flat rate option at that point. And this would require additional changes in there, but the bulk of the changes are set out. It doesn't eliminate. It does. It would also eliminate the cap. So there's the question at that point of whether you would want to eliminate the default rate as well.
Is that in that's 21A?
That's 22A is the repeal. So this 21A was to consider increasing the amount of the flat fee.
From the beginning,
Right.
from now, okay.
22A is a proposal to then repeal the flat fee option and the flat fee cap altogether as of 2031. So, and that's 22A. So
I just don't think we have enough information at this point.
So 21A would be gone, right?
right, so I think what I
And 22A would be in.
so there are two different things. 21A is 2029, increase the flat
Yep.
fee. 22A is 2031, repeal the flat fee option altogether and get rid of the cap.
Yeah, I don't agree. with that.
Where does it say 2031 in the effective date? So
It's in the effective dates at the end. Yeah. So
Can you say that again? Which?
21A is January 1, 2029. And that would be for an increase. Flat fee. 22A is January 1, 2031, and that would be a proposed repeal
And in
of the flat fee.
in the reports that we called out and asked them to come up with a new number for $78.
To address whether to retain the flat fee, and if so, what an appropriate amount is.
Right. So I think we're fine with getting rid of that.
I would just like to understand why they suggested it. Just 2 minutes, maybe.
Go ahead.
Sure. So, I discussed this on, Monday when we met as well. Having a flat fee that extends into the period, additional vehicles that do run on gas are incorporated into the program. Creates a scenario in which, the state would actually potentially owe somebody who had paid more in gas tax than $178, which is a high possibility. That would then be sort of turned into a credit and carried over into the next year. And I don't think that that was the intention of the committee. I would ask Damian, does this language right now, as it stands, deal at all with a system of fuel tax credits that would help avoid the issue of double taxation?
So the report, I remember, right?
The report, but this language here for that would effectively repeal the definition of covered vehicle to include
Yeah,
fuel efficient vehicles.
the fuel tax credits are something that's supposed to be reported on, but they are not in any of the language yet because those haven't been specifically figured out.
So as I read this language, it would appear to folks without any of this context that we're introducing a statutory program for a mileage-based user fee for electric vehicles. We're introducing an additional group of vehicles, 25 miles to the gallon and above. And that they would be paying that in addition to the gas tax.
Yeah,
Because
so
there's
that,
no language in here that deals with the system of fuel tax credits.
right, so the way this is drafted, the committees of jurisdiction would get a report back for next session, in which, at which point they'll have to deal with things like fuel tax credits for the rollout to vehicles that are paying the gas tax as well. And so that's one of the things about this bill is it contemplates the expansion, but it hasn't filled in the details of how the expansion is going to work because there's a report back on some of those details. One of the options, if you implement a system of fuel tax credits, is to make it a non-refundable credit. So it can't take you below a $0 balance, which we do for income taxes.
Yep. That will be all part of
But that would be,
recommendation.
but yeah, so the current draft here does not lay out the specifics of how the fuel tax credit will work. And it relies on a report back and further legislative action. Essentially,
That's really no different than what we've done with this, because all the steps that along the way, they come back to the legislature to get to where we are now.
right,
And this is taken. When it would be helpful when we get all through and not now. Before we went to the floor to find out when was the first moment that this committee recommended to the legislature that we do vehicle miles for electric vehicles, which was 5 or 6 years ago.
I think Patrick knows that off the top of his head.
It's 2023, Act 62, the transportation.
2023, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about it.
Yeah, or.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do we have anything in here about as far as these future reports or the information we're getting about out of state miles?
Yeah, so that is in one of the reports. They're required to come back with a proposal for tracking out of state miles. And that's in advance of the rollout to plug-in hybrids and hybrids to vehicles getting above 25 miles per gallon.
Not that you haven't got anything to do, but
Well,
at some point, we'll have to have the timeline out for us.
okay.
But maybe you can do that in the time you're sleeping. Go ahead.
I would just say that I'm not in a position at this time to feel comfortable setting something in 21A or in 22A. So I would personally not like to see those included. I worry it would cause more confusion than the other way. And I think that if we want to kind of capture, I think if I heard Patrick correctly, like the concern is that I like the refundable credit, non-refundable credit idea and things like that. So I'm wondering, should we ask for, I think we do ask,
You
as
are
I pointed
already
out,
asking
you
for
already
that
are
report.
asking, and that's
Yeah.
C. So I feel like we could, that's my point, I guess.
So I think you're proposing to not include sections 21A and 22A.
Yes, that is what I would
Okay.
say, for me personally.
I'm
Is that the committee's general will?
Well, I'm totally in agreement with 21A, because we've asked.
Agreement with getting rid of it.
Getting rid of it. I'm still reading the second one.
The only real important part of the second one is the flat rate option being struck.
It removes the flat rate option, and strikes the, cap. On the bottom, on lines 7 through 9 on page 53. So you would eliminate the $178 cap.
I think the only risk to deleting these is making sure that whoever's here then pays attention.
But it's in the report that they give us on these
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah,
So,
we are gonna know
And-
more.
yeah,
One of those, I think we'll make it through.
The piece that I'm saying that in 22A, I like the striking of and repealing the mileage based fee in the back of it again. And we're just restating what we're asking in the study in the first part. And sometimes repetition isn't bad,
But it's also, I mean, okay, I'm happy with that part. I think the part in 22A that I'm not comfortable with is that we're getting rid of the cap, because I don't know if that's the right decision right now. And also that we're taking away the flat fee option, which I don't know if that's the right decision right now. So I would not like to see those two things added to the bill, because this isn't in the bill currently. This is something we're adding into the bill.
this is, yeah, so this is language that was proposed for addition by AOT that, was that I was asked to include so you could review it and consider it.
Because what if 95% of people do the flat fee? You know, I mean, that would give you.
Why don't we consider removing all report, all sections related to the future and wait for the report?
Okay,
So you mean the 21A and 22A, or do
Yeah.
you mean 21, 21A, 22 and 22A? Because 21 expands the program to hybrids, et cetera. 22 expands it to all light duty vehicles.
so I would only take out 21A and, yeah, and 22A, take it out.
Both of them, 21A and 22.
Yeah.
Yeah,
22.
okay.
Both are gone.
So,
But
yeah,
I have no problem telling the agency, give us options for payment in, MBUF and the pay-as-you-go installment pieces. I have no problem saying that twice to the agency.
Okay.
what 21 and 22 essentially do for you is they force you to come back and take action. Because you either have to fill in the blanks or you have to push out the dates. Otherwise, you'll have folks coming into the program and the program won't be properly structured.
And I like us having a deadline saying we have to make a decision.
Yeah, so those two sections, similar to other areas where you set a deadline and then you have to come back to it to either address it in the future, or repeal it. That this essentially is that you're going to have to either make updates to the statute to address things like how do we deal with folks who are paying $140 a year in gas tax already? Or, you know, how do we deal with, maybe there's a shock to the revenue estimates because of a flat fee
Yeah.
or something like
Could,
that.
could we even have that be added to C, like in particular, like in the report piece, adding it to the recommend, and under C, could we say, looking specifically at the transition to hybrid vehicles and the remaining flat fee? That would be, I'm going back. to- Like, could we call out specifically under that, say like specifically related to when the transition happens into other non-BEV vehicles, including the credit thing, I don't know how to word that. You're much better at wordsmithing it.
Where are you right now?
That, I went back to page 47, where we are asking within that report back to us to ask if we, to recommend whether to retain a flat fee option and to recommend the appropriate amount of flat fee. So I'm wondering, should we, it seems like the conversation we're having, there are some questions that we know we want answers to.
Yeah, and so
Specifically.
yeah, that is the January 31 of next year report. And then
But you're going forward after,
yeah, so what I can add in there is, I think, so right now it says recommend whether to retain a flat fee option for the MBUF, and if so, what the appropriate amount of the flat fee would be. You could also split that so that there's another portion of that that says, basically say if a flat fee is retained, recommend the appropriate amount of the flat fee and whether to provide, whether to make amendments to the flat fee to address the integration of plug-in hybrids, hybrid
Yeah.
electric and internal combustion vehicles,
Because I think that's kind of the question.
Could that,
just other light duty vehicles into the program.
could that include that you have multiple flat fees, different flat fees depending on different,
Yeah. So, or perhaps there's a credit against the flat fee amount.
okay,
It could just, I mean, that a very simple option potentially is that you're getting a flat credit based on your anticipated mileage
right.
or fuel efficiency.
So you can add that language.
Um, Well. Okay. Section 23. Are there any changes here? Yeah, so there's one on line 18 of page 53. This is the inflator, which is, so the effective date for this is January 1, 2030. The effective date for this language would be January 1, 2031, or the date on which the mileage-based user fee applies to all light-duty vehicles, whichever is later. And it would provide that on each January 1st, the mileage-based user fee rate would be increased by the percentage change in the National Highway Construction Cost Index. The question there was, do you want to put a cap on that at a point by which it could not increase more than a certain percentage in a given year? So there's basically saying your automatic increase couldn't go by a certain percentage. You can always legislatively reset that. So to give you an example of where that's happened with the minimum wage in the state, we have an inflation cap, but at various times, as all of you have experienced here, the legislature has said, notwithstanding the inflation cap, we're going to reset the base because we feel that it's out of whack with where it should be. So, but that would essentially set, you know, if you put in a cap and the highway construction cost index went up by say 12%, but the cap said 5 or 8 or 10, it would just hit a cap.
Period of time, what's reporting to us 60% inflation since
Over.
2021 over a 5-year period. I wouldn't have wanted the tax to go up 60%.
Right. So the question then would be, if you want to avoid that, what would you think the maximum per year increase should be? Because that would be your cap.
Can
We have other things.
Yeah, isn't the tip, isn't there a cap with the tip? Yeah, so we do.
In the floor. Floor cap.
Well, so the TIB is specifically if there's a floor and then it can be no more than 2%
Yeah.
of the price. With minimum wage, it's set at 5%. With other inflators, it depends. But minimum wage is just the one I have the most experience with from my previous role here. But I would have to look at what the caps are that you could set it at what you think is a reasonable amount. And this again has an effective date of January 1, 2031 at the earliest. So if you you can set a cap and always revise it before then. Or take it away before that.
Part of the reason
your
we said
experience.
that then is because everybody's in.
That's right. So at that point,
Everybody-
you would have an
everybody
inflation
was
adjustment for
participating.
everyone.
And so we would treat everybody the same.
Right, so what you would see with this cap is that even if you're applying a fuel tax credit, the amount against which that credit would be taken would be adjusting. One of the things to keep in mind though is that with the cap here, you'll need to revisit if you're capping the maximum amount. If you're increasing the rate, you're going to have more and more people bumping up against the maximum amount. So that those two do not work in concert. So that is again something you need to revisit if you do this. The other option is if you didn't want to include the inflator now and wanted to come back to it later, but that again is a policy choice. Do you want to put the inflator in so that it would have to be undone later? Or do you want to revisit the issue in later years and consider whether to add it? I know politically and so forth, that's got.
I'm just thinking, given the economics of, the political climate and the economics of prices of everything. Why wouldn't we wanna, why would we index it? Why wouldn't we wanna revisit it every couple of years, every year? And, you know, like you just said, it's kind of out of whack right now. I don't know.
The only problem is, and the people that sit at the table that talk about gasoline, we haven't been really good at making any adjustments.
Yeah. This is true.
That is true.
I think I need more time for this one. I'm not sure I can, if you're asking opinions right now, I don't know if I have a fully formed opinion personally.
Well, I, only, the time we've got to start get this out is we're
Well,
running
yeah,
out
just
of
hold this
time.
one open just for a little bit. So
Yeah, no, I'm not,
consider it a little-
but I'm saying we'll put this on hold right now, but if we're gonna, have this.
Yeah, I just want to think about it a little bit.
Yeah,
Because I can see there's sides. I don't know.
I'm okay with it. I don't know how you figure out the percentage.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know.
Well, you do the index. And actually, there's a New Hampshire index, because I was concerned that, New England might have a higher rate, but it's very similar to the federal, to the national index.
Transportation.
Yeah, there's this. So they're reasonably close.
well, the other thing is we do have the cap return.
Well,
So we could say we follow the cap
Fight for
return.
that.
Yeah,
So the tip cap works differently though.
yeah, I know.
The tip
but it-
cap is not tied to inflation, it's tied to the price of gas, and the floor kicks in most of the time, and it's only when the price goes above a certain point that you get to the 2%.
Yeah,
So it doesn't actually track real inflation.
but it does track the price of fuel,
Right.
which over time, fuel goes up, but it never really goes down.
Neither does construction.
Right.
Right.
Construction cost is what we need it for.
So the difference with the 2% on the TIB is it's tied to the cost of a gallon of gas. It doesn't actually have a specific inflator in there that's set. You could set a cap of no more than 2% per
But
year.
gas over time, you have little bumps in between, but it never really
Right,
goes down.
with the way the TIB works, the vast majority of the time, we're at or near the minimum floor for that.
Why don't we put this on hold? We are eating forward, working.
Okay.
This sounds like.
Well, I bet people that have wanted inflators.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Is maybe we could have JFO just come in and talk through
Yep.
that section with me.
We're gonna put it on
That's what I'm-
hold. We gotta get through this.
Yeah, so on the bottom of page 55. Oh gosh, I'm sorry.
That wasn't your kids. was it?
No, that was Lauren's calling about wood pellets.
No.
Modern wood heat?
Yep, my bin's running low, so. Anyway, now that everyone knows. Ask me about my pellet boiler. So, the next change, bottom of page 55, top of page 56. This came from AOT. It is a request just for consistency between the language in 8A and 9A. So if you look down at oh God, I'm sorry.
Come on, Boris.
Just say yes.
The
Well, this is like easy section.
Yeah, this is easy.
Yeah, so it basically, it's consistent with lines 11 through 13 on page 57.
You know, but
So it's, and the language change here, I don't see any substantive legal difference between it. It just makes it consistent. So there's not a question of, is the secretary's discretion different here? It's both, in both instances, the secretary is making a determination that it's in the best interest of the state to either waive the bond or to accept another surety in lieu of a bond.
I like AOT's language.
Thrown off by that phone call, just leave a voicemail. All right. The next change on page 59, line 3, I have responsibilities plural, again, stylistically, responsibility for consistency with agency maintained bridges. And then again on line 13 of page 59, costs and expenses for agency maintained bridges, which is consistent with town. These were just little typos. Going.
This seems easy. I'm checking these off.
Yep,
Yeah.
I am too.
Okay, and that brings us to page 64.
Oh, so you're just renumbering 28, 29.
Yeah, all of those are renumbering because we deleted a section earlier. You don't need to worry about those. Page 64, these were the salt and sand shed. So preferential weighting to salt and sand shed and bike ped, or to just salt and sand shed, or to leaving the language alone. I spoke to Senate Natural Resources and Energy this morning. Their preference was option 1, salt and sand shed and bike ped. Understanding that you can also obtain money for things like restoration of a historic transportation structure, building a scenic overlook. So there are other eligible uses, and their preference was, given the work they've done on salt and sand shed issues, they'd like to see preferential weighting for that, but they also don't want to take away preferential weighting for bike ped, so they said do both. And I went through the projects earlier. The vast majority of the projects were bike ped, followed by salt and sand, and then culvert. And so this would give salt and sand and bike ped preference over culvert. There was also restoration of a covered bridge and a couple other small projects that were in there for this year's transportation.
Somewhat of the opinion that if we increase the cap from 200,000 to 600,000, that a lot more towns are going to say, I can do the project. If it's 200,000 and you've got a $800,000 or $900,000 salt and sand shed, they probably don't apply.
But they apply and then they realize they can't do it, and they never repeat it.
Yeah.
It'd be really nice if the state had a sample, project, like a, sample salt shed that could be used so that, the drawings could be used by some specs and maybe, but that's another,
But that's another time.
I know.
Go ahead.
Well, I did want to say, we can see examples with the press release that was just sent out related to the funding from this right now. So if we want to see the example, Michelle was kind enough to send that out to everybody. This was like the one win for bike ped in the whole T-bill is kind of what I heard from advocates. So I'm bummed that we're not sticking with the House version, but I respect that. I think I'm the lone voice on this. So I do not want it to just be salt sheds.
I will say I'm happy to have the committee across the hallway, and
Yes.
And it's existing, it's not something that the House changed, that was existing law to have the, like, that's be.
Yeah, bike ped was existing laws, the preferential weighting for bike ped. So the way it works under existing laws, there's a 50% set aside for salt and sand and other stormwater mitigation. And then after that 50% set aside, preferential weighting is given to bike ped with the remaining funding. And then with the new language, that 50% set aside goes away. But now across the program, preferential weighting is given if you either have bike ped as a primary component or it's salt and sand shed, you get preferential weighting. There are other factors they consider. So that's not the only thing, but you get a little extra weight on the scale when your project is considered for the grant. It's worth noting too that for the coming fiscal year, in the language that came over from the House, and you have not proposed to change this, there's an increase to 1.2 million for 1 year to get out some additional projects and clear some of the backlog.
So I guess it doesn't tie the hands if there aren't any salt shed projects that come in, but,
Right.
yeah, I do just hope that we really do consider that this will mean fewer bike ped projects possibly, which is a bummer, but fair enough.
But this reduces the preference to salt sheds
Yeah, that's what the house.
by taking away the 50%.
It does take away the 50.
Yeah, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but we're also now putting it back to where salt sheds are on par with bike ped, which
Yes.
before there was a prioritization of bike ped from the House language, if I'm understanding.
They kind of both, they sort of, because the Schultz got 50%, that's a way of prioritizing.
Yes.
But they were kind of both prioritized in different ways.
Yeah,
But now they're equal.
yeah, and I say that's a bummer.
We're also putting.
No, they don't have to get it though.
Yeah, no, right. So that's
True.
Before they did.
the salt shed that they
Salt
they
sheds
would hold
were-
50%.
Because of the 50%
Yes.
goes to salt sheds.
Even if they didn't have a salt shed, they would just the money.
I'm,
Yes, but there are so many bike ped projects that are available right now. Like there's way more than the grant
Right.
would ever hit.
But this 50% limited it, not go over.
Yeah, that's what the House did.
No, this,
The House removed the 50% limit.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's what I agree with.
But we're keeping that.
I know, and I agree with that, but I don't. I'm not explaining them. I would like to go back to the House language, but I respect that that's not where people are
I
at. So
I think the compromise here is what the
Yeah.
committee across the hall did.
yeah,
Are we okay with
we have options.
Okay. Yep. Next.
Probably gonna take us down to 88 pages. Sorry, guys. Okay, the next changes in section 35 on page 66. I had the wrong year for the acts and resolves. It's been corrected to 2025. And then going on to page 67, this is an increase on line 3 for the House had proposed 192,000 for drive electric VT. This would increase it to 242,000. If you remember back about
The
50 pages ago,
the effect of this is giving them the 325 that they need to do for the year.
right, with carry forward, right?
They have carried forward to get through the end of September.
So, the next change here, or the next discussion point is in section 39 on page 70. This is the $500,000, from, AOT, to provide grants to public transit agencies to support recruitment and retention of volunteer drivers and mobility management activities related to medical
So
transport.
I have a note from the agency
Oh.
that public transit, the question I asked was, given the 600 from, last year, what would it take to continue the effort that we started last year in here? Because we hired 2.5 people and the indication was they said they could do it with 400 instead of 5.
Oh.
So, with that, I would recommend 400,000 here.
Maybe we do 500,000 and see if Abrupt stays it down at 100K.
Well,
Well, the question is, what fund are you thinking?
Yeah, so
well, I was going to suggest back in
General.
section 10 that we take the 10 million transfer and make it 10,400,000.
and so then this would be T fund, because we've transferred from general fund to T fund above. So,
I'm totally pro.
Well,
Are you,
we
what
just,
hat are you
we
wearing?
just got our ass down by 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Well, now we're only 8,200,000 short, so we're spending 300,000.
Yeah. Moving forward, guys. But these
So-
are important. These are really, really.
Oh, these are
Yeah.
neat.
And I hope that we can get some rural transformation healthcare money.
I,
That's the other piece.
Well-
It's in the general fund and we're able to,
the
that's
plan
where
will
we would
be,
get it from.
the plan will be for us in the next couple of weeks to meet with Jill Mast Olson and get her in here to talk to her again.
I just would be shocked. This is exactly what the rural healthcare transformation money is to be trying to support, which is.
Well,
for the
particularly what
separated.
we've heard is they need IT systems to help hospitals talk with the public transit agencies, which is a totally new thing, which. So, section 10 and this. And that would close them both of them out. And then the new charging stations.
updating my notes. Okay, the new charging station language.
So no changes until,
So on the top of page 70, the definition of charging network provider is shortened as recommended by ChargePoint to a person that operates the digital communication network that remotely manages EVSE at a charging station.
this is page 71.
71.
71, I'm sorry.
You've already sorted your pages, so.
Yeah. No, I had my cursor on the wrong page.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
To make it easier for me on here, I get rid of the header and footer so I can just keep going with the language. You guys are learning all the secrets today. My heating system. So charging station, this is the area in the immediate vicinity of one or more EVSE and includes the EVSE supporting equipment, parking areas adjacent, and lanes for vehicle ingress and egress. This is the charge point language that CLF indicated it was okay with. DC fast charger, the change in the highlighted areas, the rapid was deleted, word rapid was deleted. Line 11 on page 72, that was changed from 240 volts to 277 volts as recommended by ChargePoint. And then on publicly funded and available charging station means a charging station that has received or expects to receive grant loan or other incentive. And that is publicly available. This is Senator Perchlik's recommended change. So I think we've eliminated a couple instances of publicly and or available in there. On line 11 and 12, so Senator Harrison had identified, so CLF had recommended installed or refurbished. Senator Harrison had recommended or noted that refurbished might not be the best term. I did some looking in my Roger, my thesaurus. Come on, Roger, your Oxford, your Blacks. You guys don't call out your reference
No.
books for drafting by their first name. Okay, I guess I'm the only word nerd here.
I like reconditioned.
Yeah, refitted or reconditioned are two words that seem to match more with equipment. Refurbished is seem to be often called out more in the context of furniture, although it's commonly used with electronic devices these days. But refitted or reconditioned,
I like reconditioned.
I don't.
All right.
And the intent of this is to make sure that older charging stations are included in these
When they get,
regulations.
when they get
When they get mixed up.
reconditioned, yeah.
Yeah,
So when they're updated, update them so that they can come forward with this. And the date was changed to September 30th, 2026. The original
Yeah.
recommended
Yes.
been January
Just
1st.
California.
So California actually, I checked on this, and they actually took effect, a couple days ago.
Oh.
So their effective date was sooner than, had been anticipated, according to the online. I don't know, they may not be enforcing it. But according to the online effective date for their regulations, it took effect, in the last 2 weeks.
But this is the soonest of available dates that we had talked about.
This would give you, this gives you 5 months of lead time from when this language reaches the Senate floor for folks to start anticipating.
well, I thought that this language is just for is just to determine which charging stations are eligible or are subject to this.
Yes, it is.
So, okay, so that's different than an effective date, because an effective date could include,
I'm
all of
sorry,
them.
yes, the effective date is July 1, but this is saying as of whenever this bill takes effect, that if you are installing or reconditioning a charging station on or after that date, it has to meet these requirements.
Right. and I really appreciate this change because we're going to have a lot of new chargers after 2026.
Right, and
And we would
the,
have lost those.
a lot of the new chargers are under NEVI, so they're already subject to this, but this will catch the ones that aren't part of NEVI,
Okay,
that are coming online.
okay, so that's good to know.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's an important thing to note.
Yeah.
If it's already in the NEVI program pipeline, it already has to meet this.
Okay, good.
But this is bringing the ones that aren't in the NEVI pipeline.
Does it include the Tesla chargers?
Only if they're receiving, this is again, as Anthony mentioned yesterday, this is just publicly, oh, hey,
Hello.
good to see you. This is just publicly funded, or retail electric.
Right, no, I understand.
Utility funded chargers, so if Teslas are funded by Tesla and not taking public funds, they won't be part of this.
Right, but I
Um,
think he knows.
but
Might recognize. Sure. Anthony Arvino, Conservation Law Foundation. So it's my understanding Tesla has participated in public funding programs across the country, so I expect they would in Vermont. And I did want to just add a point to the NEVI. The NEVI real-time data requirements, if I understand correctly, have expiration. And so this, even though they're already captured in the NEVI program, having this in state law means that this will endure indefinitely. So we are taking a step up.
Good,
there.
good, thank you, that's very helpful.
all right. The next change, line 19 on page 74, going over onto the top of page 75. 9A through C are the charge point versions of the pricing and payment information. And then, I believe actually I may, we were going to get more information on whether credit or debit was needed. And so that I don't have that information. I don't know if Anthony does or not. But I can get that before next draft if we still need that information.
What line is that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That
so
was,
that is under payment methods. So that is line 3 on page 75.
And so
I think we were waiting to hear back on that, and
but we could say credit, debit, touch, tap or whatever.
yeah, so yeah, including whether, I mean, you could see the payment methods accepted at the charging station, including whether credit or debit cards or touchless payment methods are accepted.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
yeah, and then just have some general thing saying, or whatever, it's, there's a lot of different methods. I don't.
Yeah, so credit, debit, and touchless payment would include Apple Pay, Google Pay. So, or Google Wallet, I guess, is their brand name. There are other ones too.
Yeah.
So, but that would be under the umbrella of touchless payments, I think, but again.
Yeah, so what I'm understanding is that NEVI actually does require contactless payments. So you would, but for this, I do think it actually makes sense to say, if you're gonna say that they have to display payment methods, then you might want to break it out. As you were suggesting.
Okay. And then some catch-all, just
Yeah.
because there's gonna be new technology that we don't even know. Okay, great, thank you.
Um, Okay, yep, and then the other changes in here, so this is from B through, I think, E or F, we've now combined. You kept all of the different paragraphs from ChargePoint and CLF.
Yep.
So the provisions of this section would apply to publicly funded and available charging stations at all times. And then, the question that came up yesterday is Senator Harrison wanted to address when it's open for use. And so the way I worded that was at all times that a member of the public may use the associated EVSE to charge a plug-in electric vehicle. I don't know if that captures it.
Yeah,
But that would be when it's open for use.
no, can I just explain,
Yeah.
this wasn't supposed to be like a condition, it's supposed to be an item that public is aware of.
That's no problem.
So.
It's not meant to be a description of it.
Right, so
Or,
I believe. So on page 74, lines 6 and 7. The access information for the charging station already requires including the hours of operation for the charging station.
okay, well, that's
Days and times, including hours of operation.
Okay.
So that's already in there.
great.
And so then the language that had been in there was, that these provisions would apply at any time it was available for use. And I think the question was, well, what does available mean? And so I'm trying to capture that. The requirements about, for example, the real-time status and the real-time price to charge. You don't have to update those if, for example, it's on a timer and it's not available for the public to use for charging from like 11 to 4
That makes sense.
at night. So I think that's what that's capturing.
Okay.
So the enforcement there, this is updated. So by any provisions of this section may be enforced by any state agency or department that provides or administers grants, loans, or other incentives to support the construction or operation of publicly funded and available charging stations, and the Department of Public Service for publicly funded and available charging stations that have received a grant, loan, or other incentive provided by one or more Vermont retail electricity providers. And that is basically to reflect that the second part there reflects that retail electricity providers, they may have an action in contract if there's a contractual term, but the Department of Public Service is the only entity that could act on behalf of the state. charging network provider may attach reasonable conditions, provided that the conditions do not prevent access to the information required. And so that was, I think that was in CLF's recommended language. And then within E1, the state agency or department that provides a grant, loan, or other incentive shall notify the relevant charging network provider that the provisions of this section apply to a charging station. And then a retail electricity provider would have to notify BPS. And then BPS would have to notify the relevant charging network provider that the provisions of this section apply. I think that was the construct we discussed yesterday. Okay, and then the definitions, the retail electricity provider definition is new. I use the existing public service definition from Title 30 to be consistent with Department of Public Service jurisdiction. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. We might get to the finish here,
We're
guys.
going to get to the finish.
We will get
There's
to the
some
finish.
things, there's things, some things not.
Yeah. So, reasonable restriction on page 78, line 8, is a restriction that does not significantly increase EVSE. So we are into the common interest community EVSE language here. This was an edit that was discussed when we went over that with Chris Jensen last week. And then the changes on lines 16 to 19 were recommended by Chris Jensen. So this would clarify that it is installation of EVSE within the boundary of the unit owner's unit or limited common element or the unit owner's exclusively designated parking space or the use of such EVSE by a unit owner or the occupants of the unit owner's unit. The three words that I omitted here on line 19, which Cameron pointed out to me after reviewing this language, Chris had noted for non-commercial purposes. So that would go after by the unit owner or occupants of the unit owner's unit for non-commercial purposes. So
you're gonna add that.
Yep.
And then the next change, this was line 3 to 5 on page 79, providing that installation of EVSE would not be deemed a division or reallocation of a common element and shall not alter the allocated interest. This avoids having to have all the unit owners vote to allow it or not. And then the line 17 to 19 on page 79 allows the condominium to or common interest community to impose other reasonable restrictions, understanding that they are already prohibited from imposing any restrictions that would unreasonably restrict the installation of chargers. So, and then lines 20 on page 79 through 5 on page 80. This allows, if the executive board of the associations determines that the cumulative or additional use of the electricity due to the installation and use of EVSE requires infrastructure improvements. So, for example, increasing the drop from the power lines to the building or installation of a new panel or something like that. The association can assess the cost of the required improvements against the unit owner of each unit that has installed or will install EVSE. So they can prorate this out among unit owners. So for example, everyone could pay a contribution towards the cost of a new panel out next to the parking spaces or something like that. The remaining changes on that page are renumbering. And then finally, lines 2 through 5 on page 81. This provides that if the successor owner of a unit does not agree in writing to undertake and comply with the responsibilities with respect to the EPSC, that the unit owner would remove the EPSC prior to sale and restoring the affected common elements. So that this is a condition they can impose if they choose to. That brings us to the end of the common interest communities. And that brings us to a proposal from Senator Perchlik that would create in section 44. This would be a 2% surcharge on the sale of aviation jet fuel, which would be in addition to the sales tax on the sale of aviation jet fuel. The surcharge would be deposited into the transportation fund. Yesterday's draft set into the transportation infrastructure bond fund for various reasons that would create a number of administrative challenges. And so after working with Senator Perchlik yesterday, it would go into the transportation fund for the construction of aviation related infrastructure consistent with federal statute and regulations. And then section 45 just updates the transportation funds to reflect that these additional funds would come in pursuant to the provisions of that section. So as I think you all know, any aviation fuel taxes need to go towards aviation purposes. Yeah. This would limit it to aviation infrastructure in that case.
I have no problem with this. I will say this will not be uncontroversial.
Well, I was a good sense proposing this idea. As you might imagine,
Now you've heard.
Are you popular then?
And I think it would be difficult to keep in here without hearing testimony from the affected parties. It was the main concern.
Here's the question. We can put this in. We're going to have to do a cleanup amendment. And we're going to have more than a week's worth of time. We could put this on the schedule. And particularly the airport people who want to come in.
Yep.
And anybody.
One airport in particular. And we could deal with it I think this is the kind of thing, it's a little easier to add it in now and strike it out later than it is try to add it in a corrective amendment. Yeah, I just would want to make sure we heard testimony. It's a pretty substantial impact. And so I think we shouldn't do it unless we have a testimony.
How would you like?
I'm okay to keep it in there and have the testimony, and then we could amend it out on the floor based on the testimony.
Yeah, and it would be an amendment from all of us. And the plan would be, if we can get this voted out tomorrow by the end of the day, because I think we're getting close. Friday, we have Green Mountain Transit that needs language that we want to take care of. I'm envisioning that not being controversial from Green Mountain Transit.
For me.
And that we would add that in as an amendment from all of us into the bill.
Oh.
We've also the state employees have wanted to raise the issue of the 62 positions that the agency has downsized.
And the 30 more.
Well, the 31 and 31. We've
Oh,
done 31
oh.
twice. It's 62 in total.
Oh, I thought we had just heard they had done another.
No, I've asked them to come in and testify. They will either be in, did they say they couldn't come Friday?
The, Oh, I misunderstood your email.
Vince will
They're coming on Tuesday.
they're coming on Tuesday.
Okay.
So we, the first of the week would take testimony on this. We could amend it in and out. However, I've got a couple of other small things that aren't in this draft that we're gonna have to talk about. So for now, I will leave this in.
So I'm opposed to this too, but so run me through the scenario you're talking. Leave it in, vote the bill out with this in.
And then we'll take testimony at the beginning of next week. And depending on the decision of the committee, we'll make the decision whether or not we leave it in or we would have an amendment to strike it.
Striking it, we'd have to do on the floor.
Yep.
Committee amendment. Remember the.
But that, we're down to so little time. I have to get this bill out this week.
This is pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward, but it's pretty controversial.
Right, but that's why we need to take testimony.
And I don't know how to, I haven't, you know,
If we're gonna hear from, if I'm understanding correctly, like airplane pilot. Is that-
More about airport. Yeah.
Well, we haven't heard
And the
from the
administration.
EV driver, and we're doing a huge increase, so. I mean,
Right. It's,
so,
I wouldn't say we haven't heard from the EV drivers.
well, no
Number of
individual.
individuals.
Yeah.
We can go back on some emails and show you much. But anyway. Okay,
you could think about, yeah, whether if you vote down.
what do you want to do?
Yeah.
You want to
Yes,
vote now?
explanation. It's not.
I would like to understand it more, about, how much revenue it would be. It's 2%.
600,000, isn't it?
Well, that was the right estimate. Yeah. And then we haven't heard from the administration on this.
We're gonna have to hear from everybody.
Right, yeah.
I just feel like jet fuels, I understand where people are coming from, but the average person is not impacted by this. And we made sweeping changes to fees that the average person is being impacted. And I understand this, maybe this is the controversial take, but I don't really have a lot of sympathy for private plane owners.
It's not right.
This is.
Oh, it's not? Oh,
This
okay,
is-
well darn.
this
I do
is-
have sympathy for public.
This is the airport. This is.
I'm already doing one.
This is BTV, so this is your regular flights out of BTV would be affected, not the individual
Well,
private plane.
And that's where most of the fuel is sold. There's other fuel sold in other airports. There's not that much, but we don't really know.
Okay,
Another.
okay. So this would affect commercial flights as well.
It's the concern.
Yeah, well, you should take the train if you can, like.
My underlying concern
need
is
more
that we're taking money that people pay at the gas pump with their car and using it for our airport infrastructure. And that, then our mom complained about this too, but we never really had a way to deal with it. And we didn't want to give up on our airports entirely, but so we've always, when the T fund has been more healthy, we've moved money from gas tax to airport infrastructure to bring down federal money for that, but it's been from vehicle taxes, not from plane taxes. So that's since we're tight, I thought, well, can we have airplanes support airports more? But there's other impacts that I think we should at least hear before we make the final decision.
Well, there would be, if we include this, it would be my intention to make sure that we get testimony this week. My only problem is I can't hold the bill up just for this.
Yeah.
Maybe the clerk will forget to call your name when we do the.
There's a call.
Well, we're not.
There's only
gonna vote
5 of
on
us,
it.
so.
You're just taking a straw poll whether to leave it in.
Yeah.
or Take it out.
I'd like to leave it in just to have the conversation and understand more. And if we don't leave it in, we're not gonna do that.
Why don't I say that I'd like to take it out and then you can overrule.
So you there's a motion on the floor, is that kind of the way, so?
No,
think
I'm
we
just
just-
gonna say,
Yeah.
how many wanna leave it in? Okay. Your beat,
Yeah.
your beat.
But your opposition is duly noted.
I can give you some strategies to cope.
Such a negative.
That's pretty.
All right, let's keep going because I've got a couple of things that I'd like to bring up to the committee.
Right. So, section 46, is a report from DMV on the potential to implement and administer an intelligent speed assistance program. So I think you've all discussed intelligent speed assistance at this point. These are similar to ignition interlocks, but they actually limit the speed at which a vehicle can drive. And the programs in the states where they are rolling out or have been authorized, they're intended to capture folks who are so-called super speeders, multiple speeding offenses, or speeding above a certain actual speed. It would look at the implementation of these programs in other states and the District of Columbia, costs for the state to implement it, and potential costs to drivers who choose to participate in it. One of the features of these programs is that the driver is typically required to pay for the installation of the device in their car as a condition of participating in the program. This report would come back next January.
I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. I think we talked a lot about at the beginning of the session, our goal around safety. And I think that this is a good step in that direction. And the report is required by AOT to do. So I guess I would hope that they would be interested in doing it, but I respect if they don't. I guess,
Well,
I mean, I don't know if we've heard from
I
them.
think it's really the front side of any state doing this, so. You know. 47.
Section 47. So these are the miscellaneous corrections that were requested by the Public Utility Commission.
Yep.
With feedback from the Transportation Board taken into account. So in the first section, 47, this is basically providing that if you violate one of the provisions related to transportation of explosives, there's a penalty of up to 18 months in prison or a fine of $2,000. There's striking or regulation made by the Public Utility Commission because they no longer have jurisdiction over this area. There are extensive federal regulations relating to the transportation of explosives that anyone who's transporting them has to comply with. So this is really a piggyback on that. Section 48 and 49, these are 48 is general public transit agencies. And this is allowing the Transportation Board to impose any regulatory provision of Title 30 that it deems to be necessary on public transit systems and facilities instead of the Public Utility Commission, who no longer has jurisdiction over public transit.
Oh.
Section 49 is GMPA.
The 48.
Title 30 is the public utilities title. I don't know the extent to which there's anything left in Title 30 that would apply, but it allows the Transportation Board to look at that and impose conditions. I would have to look. Historically, Public Utility Commission had a great deal more say in transportation issues. As over time, that has gradually, their focus has shifted to energy and other utilities, and transportation has shifted away from them. As you'll see in the next sections, sections 50. So sections 50 through 54 all relate to log drives.
Yes.
These sections, so there is a question in here. The Transportation Board recommended considering either Agency of Natural Resources or the Superior Court to take jurisdiction over this. I don't know the extent to which the Agency of Natural Resources has capacity or a current program that would fit this. In addition, if you stick with Agency of Natural Resources, some of the latter sections make sense. If you go with Superior Court, some of the latter sections which involve an appeal to the Superior Court would need to be repealed. These may not be ready for prime time, given the short time period here. But you could put in something if you want to take testimony in the coming weeks, if you think you'll have
We
time.
could do that too.
And we could set it as A&R with Superior Court review. And then consider,
Because even though they don't have a program for it, the chance that somebody's gonna do a log drive is so small that I don't think.
well, that's one of the other
We
things.
haven't had one in 100 years, so.
Right, to what extent do you still need statute governing damages for a log drive? That's what this does, is it essentially sets up an alternative process for figuring damages to adjoining riparian, like Riverside property owners from a log drive.
I think the Natural Resources Agency would be apoplectic if somebody was gonna do a log drive.
Do you need a permit?
I don't know, this is very far outside of my area of expertise.
Someone should do a deep dive on the study of log. drive
Well,
regulation.
That's gonna be my research request.
Why are we doing this again?
The PUC was named and they're like, hey, don't name us in here, like clean this up.
And he's come 2 different
Oh, yeah.
times
Yeah, 2
now,
years in a row now.
testifying.
Yeah.
saying, great. So will we put this in and another thing, we'll take testimony out, and if it doesn't fit, we'll take it out,
Yep,
okay?
okay,
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, so we are gonna take a little bit of testimony.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
take the testimony next week.
Yeah.
I'm good with it now.
55 is,
okay, 55 is relief from taxes for railroad corporations on petition. Historically, the petition went to the Public Utility Commission. Again, they feel that this is no longer within their area of expertise or jurisdiction. The recommendation from the Transportation Board after they reviewed this was that Commissioner of Taxes might be the best place to put this. I don't know the history of this or when this statute originated. I can get you that information, but at minimum, you'll want to hear from the Department of Taxes on this.
And AOT also.
Well, the Transportation Board is the one that made the recommendation.
Right, but just, this is probably historical and some of these, railroads were probably, purchased by the state or taken over by the
Right,
state.
I mean, if you look at the language here, it's saying, you know, if paying taxes would imperil the railroad's
Yeah.
continued existence,
Yeah,
it can apply for a relief from its taxes.
and
yeah,
knowing that people have things they need to do. So next week, it will be GMT, the jet fuels. We've got log drives and we've got this section that we're gonna have to hear.
And
Okay.
bonding, the big bonding question, the treasurer.
Yeah.
Let's say that was.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna solve
But you're going to get some information between now and tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, now.
I
Yeah.
have one thing that I brought up here before. We had that testimony on the service history of vehicles that were sold.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Carfax.
And Carfax
Oh,
and
yeah.
that piece. I have language for to have it studied, would include the auto dealers, DMV, and the AG's office there, and I'm going to get that included, and so you can review it tomorrow.
Okay, so it would be.
But it's basically asking for a report back.
Okay. So, okay,
You can.
yeah, so I could add maybe data privacy. We'll see, or maybe not.
If you've got data privacy in an area, I could you know, we could,
Okay,
if there's somebody to take testimony
Yeah.
on, next week. Oh, the other thing is that, as I said to you, the first of the week, we're gonna hear from, the SCA about
Yeah.
the drop in it. Yes.
good,
Okay?
Great.
And the plan will be, I'm gonna work with Damien, but the plan will be to vote on this tomorrow.
And what time do you want us to come into?
But
Probably dawn. I can't do dawn.
There.
can we come at 8:30 again? Can we come at 8:30?
Yeah.
Thank you all. Can you take the